Hey, what's happening, football peeps? It's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my AFC and NFC Championship picks. Before we talk about both of those games, very quick thoughts from last week's divisional games. Well, a lot of things went on in the divisional games. One of those games everybody knew going into that was I could assume that it's very interesting. We all thought that the New England Patriots were going to blow out Houston, but it turned out that the Houston Texans actually made it a game in the first half, but then New England just kind of broke it open in the second half of that game. So yeah, it is a little bit surprising that the Patriots somehow got into a game when they should have easily blown out the Texans, and yet it didn't happen. Atlanta was actually the big surprise this weekend. I picked the Seahawks last week. I thought Seattle still had enough to beat them. But unfortunately, the way the Atlanta Falcons played, they look like they're on a mission of their own right now. I mean, this has been a franchise that's really been doing their absolute best to get back to the Super Bowl and hopefully win it. Remember, keep in mind, Atlanta Falcons have been to the Super Bowl once before, but that was back in 1998. But unfortunately, they ran into a good Denver Broncos team, and they just couldn't beat John Elway at the time. So Atlanta's kind of on a mission here. I think we may have seen the last good run of the Seattle Seahawks. It's going to be tough to say what's going to go forward with this franchise because really right now they got a lot of free agents coming up in the offseason they got to work out. And they really need to work out offense and defense on that team. The other divisional games, before I get into the Pittsburgh, Kansas City one. Of course, obviously the game of the weekend was definitely Green Bay and Dallas. Now, I know a lot of Dallas Cowboy fans are still upset over this one. I mean, keep in mind though, if it wasn't for Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott, you wouldn't have gotten to that point. Keep in mind, you went 13-3, you won the division, you were the number 1 seed. It was just unfortunate that you had to run into the Packers at a time where Aaron Rodgers and the team had momentum going into that game. But Prescott and Elliott really did keep the Cowboys in the game, despite it looked like they were going to get blown out in that game. But they came back to rally in the second half. They almost beat Green Bay, but Green Bay won on a last-second field goal. So I would say for Dallas Cowboy fans, I mean, I know there's been a lot of question for what I read in the media so far in terms of, do they still hang on to Tony Romo? It's tough to say because, who's to say that this was just a fluke for Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott? I mean, keep in mind, quarterbacks after a rookie season, tend to have sophomore slumps. I don't know if that's going to be the case with Prescott. He needs to prove himself next year. And he really needs to prove it big time to make sure that what happened this season was not a fluke. But as far as going to Green Bay side and all that, there's no question this Green Bay team is looking even more dangerous, even though despite not having Jordy Nelson at wide receiver. They did suffer a little bit of some injuries in the Dallas Cowboy game. But to me, this is a team I don't know if you want to face in the Conference Championship, let alone the Super Bowl. And of course, the controversy over the referee Schaefer's call on a holding call against the Chiefs, and one of their players, Kelsey, got very upset with the officiating and calling them Foot Locker employees or whatever or something like that. I mean, I thought that was kind of childish and ridiculous. Even though I do kind of agree. I mean, the referees do look like Foot Locker workers. But I think the bigger controversy was Antonio Brown's video on Facebook and all that. If the New England Patriots did not need any more motivation, I think Antonio Brown may have given the Patriots even more motivation. And I think coming from what happened, I read in the media this week, Antonio Brown better back up his mouth. He better prove it on the field if that team wants to forget what happened with that video and really get into that point. Anyways, let's talk about the Conference Championship games now. Let's begin with the AFC Championship now. It is the Pittsburgh Steelers at the New England Patriots. The Patriots are a 6-point favorite. No question that number is going to be a little bit lower than that. But for this sake, I'm going to keep it at 6 points for the sake of this video. I don't know if that number is going to change. It might before kickoff, but we'll wait and see. Now, obviously, Both these teams now, they met each other going now twice. They met each other 2 times in the last 10 years for the AFC champion for the right to go to the Super Bowl, 2001 and 2004. And both times the Pittsburgh Steelers lost to the Patriots. But those games were in Pittsburgh. This one now is in Foxborough. Let's take a couple of things to keep in mind for the New England Patriots. Now, you look back at that game against the Texans. Obviously, I think the presence of Gronkowski really is affecting this team. But Dion Lewis, I think, is more the key for the Patriots to beat Pittsburgh. Look, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick know how to pick apart defenses. And that's one thing I hope the Pittsburgh Steelers are ready for this. Their defense better be ready for them. Because especially off the field issues with Antonio Brown, with that video and all that, he better back up his mouth in terms of their offense. Now, obviously, Roethlisberger did struggle in that game. Pittsburgh barely won by a bunch of field goals here, and that doesn't seem promising against a New England team that's really still on a roll. Even though technically both teams did not play that spectacular, so you could say this game is pretty evenly matched. In all honesty, time for my pick now. This is probably the toughest pick, really, out of both games. I think the NFC Championship is a little bit more easier pick than this one here. So who am I going to go with? I'm going to go with the New England Patriots. I think the distraction off the field issues with Antonio Brown and obviously Pittsburgh's offense and defense, the way they played against Kansas City last week, I think to me, they basically screwed themselves now. When they should have played much better against Kansas City. Kansas City wasn't all that tough. Even though Kansas City did score a touchdown and Pittsburgh didn't. But I think I look at it this way for New England here. I think they're going to expose Pittsburgh's defense. I think they're going to definitely shut Antonio Brown down in this game. And Le'Veon Bell's going to have to really come up big in this game here if Pittsburgh's in. But I think New England wins in a very close game. This game's going to be close. There's no question about it. I think the Patriots pull away in the fourth quarter. They'll probably win by 10 points. I just think the distractions and not that well played offense that the Steelers have, I don't think it's going to be enough to beat New England in this game. When really, if they really played much better, and I know this is a game that New England didn't want to get into. They wanted Kansas City would have been a much easier opponent for them, but I still think the Patriots pull it out in this game. They'll win on a very, very close game here. I'm going to pick the Patriots over the Steelers. All right, NFC Championship game now. Green Bay Packers at the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons are a 5-point favorite in this one. There's no question that number is going to be much lower. Much lower. Of course, Green Bay coming off a spectacular win, even though it did bring some questions now. They had an 18-point lead going into the second half against the Cowboys, and somehow that lead diminished. Now, I know small injuries in that game, they really can't use that as an excuse right now, but I think for Atlanta's running game, they get their running game going. I think Green Bay could have some problems here. Matt Ryan really played very well in terms of passing. He did very well against the Seahawks, picking their defense apart when they were really weak here. But now I think it's going to be a much tougher passing game for the Falcons against a pretty good Green Bay defense. Now, for Atlanta, they're going to have to, if they don't pressure Aaron Rodgers in this game, and they got to really pressure him. Don't let him get out of the pocket to throw a pass, because once he's in mobility, it's going to be tough to stop him. Not only that, look, the one thing Green Bay still lacks is a running game. They don't have much of a running game. Atlanta does, and that's Atlanta's advantage. Now, why did I say that the NFC Championship game is a little bit more easier pick than the AFC Championship? Now, keep in mind here, Green Bay's playing with a lot of momentum here, and I don't know about Atlanta. In terms of, how do you stop Green Bay's momentum here? You could tell me that this is probably a tough pick, and I know a lot of you saying, well, why aren't you gonna pick the Falcons or the Packers here? I'll get to that. Okay. Now for Atlanta's defense, like I said, you got to pressure Rodgers. You pressure him, it's gonna throw his game off. Now obviously his wide receivers are gonna have to really come up big in this game. Green Bay's defense, if they don't shut down the run, I think it's going to be a long game for them, and it could be even a much tighter game than people expected. And I expect this game to be pretty tight, but I think just like the AFC Championship that I mentioned there, I think I'm going to actually pick the Green Bay Packers here. I think the Packers pull away here. You can't underestimate Aaron Rodgers and the way that Green Bay Packer team is. Even though they might not have Jordy Nelson for this game, I don't know his status yet. You have to really look at NFL.com and other sources to see what's going to happen on Sunday. As far as I don't have much report yet, as far as from what I read in the media so far. But definitely I'm going to pick the Green Bay Packers here. I think the momentum they have here is on their side. Atlanta really needs to prove themselves if they're going to really get to the Super Bowl. Because I don't know if they're going to be able to stop Green Bay's momentum here. And this is why I'm going to pick the Green Bay Packers here. Packers over the Falcons, and my prediction is going to be in Super Bowl 51, it's going to be the Green Bay Packers against the New England Patriots. And speaking of that, everybody, I will see you guys in about 2 weeks as I make my pick for Super Bowl 51. And until then, guys, let's enjoy. Hopefully, both conference championship games are great. Hopefully, they're classics. We'll wait and see and find out, guys. Enjoy both the conference championship games, and I'll see you guys in 2 weeks when I make my pick for Super Bowl 51. Until then, guys, take care.